Hello everybody, my name is John Droney, and welcome to another episode of Godzilla and His Amazing Friends with audio commentary. Much like the previous episodes, I will be providing you with some information and trivia about the episode that was not covered. And so let's get on to the audio commentary. Now this episode is episode 11, entitled The Bad Seed, which features the monster you are looking at, Kelbeam. Now, as I said in the Space Monster contest back for episode 8, I was very hesitant about choosing Kelbeam because at the time I thought he was a popular or stereotypical choice because the user Godzilla Films has a bad tendency of using his character in his films. But I didn't know at the time that the Mebius line was running very scarce, so that's why I initially didn't want to use Kelbeam for the episode. But currently what the series has going for me, I changed my mind on using Kelbeam and decided to use an episode with him, and it turned out surprisingly well, with the help of some advice from friends. So that's why he returned here. I had a sort of change of heart on the character, and that's why he's in this episode. And now for this upcoming scene, since everybody's pointed this out, yes, this death scene of Kelbeam is indeed a reference to King Piccolo's death from the series Dragon Ball. And even the egg spit here, it's not established how Kelbeam lays an egg, but, since I've already got Kelbeam being killed in a Piccolo fashion, why not, just give him the same abilities too? Just save some time. Also, that glowing ability Mothra had that you saw earlier, that was a little thing I added on to her because, according to the timeline of this fight, this takes place before the events of the series, and therefore she's in a much more younger prime of herself, so she's able to pull off moves like this, which basically is my interpretation of a transcending fate of of Armor Mothra's, just given to the original. So I just gave it to her to make it look a little more cooler, because considering the timeline of my series, she has aged a bit. One more thing I should mention that's a bit of trivia is that originally Kelbeam and Mothra's fight wasn't going to be in the Earth's atmosphere. Originally it was going to take place on the moon, but unfortunately there were some scenes that were tricky to animate. Like, for example, I was going to have Mothra use her hurricane winds on Kelbeam, and unfortunately I didn't have a wind or a dust blowing effect to generate a hurricane wind superpower, so unfortunately I had to alter the battle instead to make it in space, because initially I wasn't a fan of her antenna blasts, and because it was Heisei, and as a result of this episode I wound up being stuck with the Heisei incarnation of Mothra, so I had to go with that because unfortunately special effects limitations, hopeful, and yeah, just one of those few things about this episode I regret, but then again I shouldn't be too upset because it was just much more easier to work in space, plus having Kelbeam spit out his egg while fighting on the moon would have seemed a little bit improbable considering what happens in the series. So yeah, it was for the greater good, but sort of unfortunate that I couldn't include the fight here. And now we're back onto the scene with the Agira family. With some advice given to some friends, or at least what they believe, or what I believe is advice, I decided to reintroduce them because at the time I didn't feel that I was giving them enough screen time or a bit of character development. So I decided to bring them back here and to show that they do have a friendly relationship with Godzilla, because Godzilla avenged their Mama Agira's husband's murderer by killing Golza. So I thought I'd bring him back in here. And basically what's going on right now is that Agira is asking Godzilla if he wants to join him and the baby, joining her and the baby, in taking a bath at the lake, but baby Agira doesn't want to go to the lake because the lake is very mysterious and full of more monsters than there are in the ocean. So it's sort of like do you want to join us and give baby some support, since Agira is pretty much a single mother monster, and because the only monster she trusts currently is Godzilla, just basically some friendly interaction between the monsters and give them a little bit more development. And as you can see, yeah, originally the plot I was going for was that baby Agira was being stubborn, and while it does seem to work too, I don't know, it's just being scared of like the possibility of there being more monsters in the lake just seems a lot more of a better thing to go with. And speaking of monsters, here we have the offspring of Kelbeam, or aka the Piccolo Kelbeam, being introduced in the series. So let's get on to him. Now, something that a few people asked, this scene right here, the ear movement abilities on Kelbeam, those are not possible in real life. The figure's wings are actually molded into the head. So, in reality, those moving ears are actually photoshopped. Because in all of Kelbeam's appearances, his ears always spring up when he's about to launch a fireball. So, yeah, I decided to Photoshop his ears to give them a little bit more authenticity, because if I just had him shoot fireballs, it just really wouldn't come off as being realistic, and I wanted to put a lot of effort into the series by giving this. And so do you, Ken! Sorry about that. It was that little punch right there, that is indeed a Street Fighter reference. I don't play the series, but I do know about Ryu's Soryuken uppercut ability. I just wanted to show off that the series is a little bit more lighthearted, but serious at the same time. So, yeah, I put in that little joke there to play around with the audience. And something else, and yeah, getting back onto the ears, whenever they spring up, like I said, I just wanted to give his appearance a lot more authenticity. So, yeah, I was just trying to make the series a little bit more keen and accurate to the original series it was crossing over with. Also, and now, getting back onto Mama Agira's, here's where I sort of was having a little bit more of a trickier time with working with her character, because around this time, I really didn't know what could make Agira stand out that well, because in the original Ultra 7, most of the focus was on Mikolas and Windom, and it still is to this day. So it was very hard, well, not very hard, but still slightly hard to work with the Agiras because of their limited screen time. But from what I do know is that they're supposed to be very agile. Well, Agira was supposed to be very agile in his original appearance. So for Mama Agira's appearance, I wanted to make her very agile, and her horn is her most prominent weapon, because as you can see here, she's moving extraordinarily fast, trying to stab Kelbeam for attacking her and her child. And also, that sequence there with her trying to stab Kelbeam and Kelbeam's swinging tail, that's actually a little bit inspired by Pokemon, because the fast-moving horn, that's actually slightly taken from Beedrill's poison sting attack against Bulbasaur in the Elite Four. And that's what I used for Agira here to show off her enhanced speed as opposed to most of the other monsters in combat. And here with Baby, I did want to show off that Baby's not entirely useless, but not entirely developed in combat, and that Baby still loves his mother, but overall his abilities aren't that, useful. They're, well, not useful, but, well, it's hard to explain, but basically he wants to protect his mom, but he's not ready to fight, and I didn't want to make him entirely useless and just be a damsel in distress for the series, so I gave him that little bite scene there. And now that Kelbeam has attacked the baby, it's time for the monsters to start kicking some serious ass. Also, this scene right here with Kelbeam's womb being revealed, this was actually a really tricky scene to actually have Kelbeam's arms move like that, because those are all photoshopped, and thanks to Pinnacle Studios, I was able to get the illusion that Agira had finally penetrated his ribs and pretty much stabbed him. It was very tricky, but I believe it's very effective in showing off the emotion of the monster for being wounded like this. And hopefully, when Season 2 gets produced, I can use this technique more and more So, this scene I actually am pretty proud of, and it took a while, but it really, really speaks for itself. And this entire sequence here, this was sort of taken from Godzilla and Anguirus' fight with Ghidorah in Gigan. And this finishing off, I'm not entirely pleased with this way of how Godzilla finishes off Kelbeam. Because yes, he finally did kill Kelbeam, but the death just seems a little bit generic, if you know what I mean. What was basically going on is that he aimed for the wound in which Agira penetrated, and he blew it up. Because with my deaths in my series, I just want to make them more realistic and not just too sudden like in most tokusatsu series go, because that's sort of a bad habit that I've noticed from them, is that, they tend to finish off their opponents a little too quickly without any sort of major realism. And while I'm not saying that's bad, because, they're tokusatsu, they're not meant to be extremely real or serious, they're just shows for kids, but in my series, I don't know, it's just a pet peeve of mine, and hopefully maybe I'll calm down, or not calm down, but sort of lighten up as the series goes. But yeah, like I said, it's just a pet peeve. And with this scene right here, the Agiras finally see that the lake is very mysterious, and maybe swimming in it is not entirely the best of choices. So maybe Baby was right in that the lake isn't the best place to take a bath. So, also, this entire scene here, this is one of the few moments where I was able to have the monsters communicate quite well, even without words, and I'm actually sort of proud of this episode for it giving off the feeling that the monsters are actually communicating without words. And trust me when I say that is an extremely hard technique to pull off, to have the monsters just roar communicate with each other. It's a lot harder than you think, and I'm really proud that I was able to nail it so well with this episode. And now one more thing to cover about is Anguirus' role. Not a lot of people complained about this, but there were a very small few that didn't get it. And that basically what's going on with this scene here is that originally Godzilla wanted to help the Agiras socialize more often with the monsters, because Godzilla's the only person she hangs out with because she trusts Godzilla the most. So Anguirus is sent by Godzilla to help show the Agiras a place where they can bathe and be safe while under his supervision. So basically, it's Godzilla's way of helping the family interact more often with the Monster Islanders. So basically, Anguirus is leading the Agira family to the beach, which is more safe. So that's all that scene was all about. Basically, Godzilla helping the family and basically killing two birds with one stone. And I should also mention that this is Rodan's only appearance in the series. Well, second appearance so far where he's not present in the episode, which his role wasn't that big anyway, so I didn't put him in here. And so that's it for episode 11. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you next month for episode 12. Later.